everybody, for sticking around and listening to this panel. It's going to be a great panel. And we're here to talk about, obviously, nuclear new build, and as opposed to the last panel about the customer impact, we're going to talk more about the execution side of it. So let me start out by asking the panelists to introduce themselves. Start with you, Ted.
Thank you very much. Well, I didn't realize sitting out there that you got these lights to look at here. My name is Ted Enos. I'm the president of Certrec. We're a regulatory and engineering and IT services company out of Fort Worth. We've recently joined the Marion family and are excited to be here with them at this conference. So looking forward to it, and we appreciate the opportunity to meet with you today.
Okay, Doug?
Thank you. I'm Doug VanTassell. I'm the president and CEO of Paragon. As well, we just recently joined the Marion family, so I think that was coincidental. But so I've been in the industry for almost 40 years. I hate to admit, but seen a lot of changes. There's a lot of the people in here that have been in the industry a while. It's an exciting time. I think Paragon is the largest, certainly the largest third-party supplier, and we are based here in Texas and Fort Worth, like Certrec is. So, you know, we really appreciate the opportunity to talk about, you know, what we see in the industry as far as some of the supply chain challenges and opportunities for the industry. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. And Kreshka Young, go ahead.
I guess I'm up. So hi, I'm Kreshka Young. I'm Dow's North America Business Director for Energy and Climate. So I have the business and commercial responsibilities for all of our operating and energy assets in the US and Canada, of which we have about 40 when you look at a combination of gas turbines, steam turbines, and fired boilers. And along with those responsibilities comes the responsibility to determine what technology and, of course, timing of eventual end-of-life replacement of those assets. And so that's how we've gotten involved in nuclear, and we'll talk more about that later.
Great.
Thank you, Kreshka.
Hi, I'm Rick Springman from Holtec International. I'm the president of our Global Clean Energy Opportunities. I also lead our international business units. I've been with the company for about 16 years, so I've been part of the company's tremendous growth from a reactor component supplier and spent fuel company into decommissioning, ownership of nuclear assets, really growing our international business and becoming a full EPC integrated delivery company, setting up new manufacturing in the US, in Camden and Ohio, and now being one of the leaders in deployment of our small modular reactor. So I've been a part of all aspects of the business and licensing products abroad. I think I've been involved in about 15 different licensing applications both in the US and abroad. So taking like new products, new concepts through regulation, through the complete detailed design, manufacturing and delivery to different clients around the world.
Great, thanks, Rick. So let me start with a question for the group. There's been a lot of discussion about the demand growth for electricity, the need for building nuclear at scale to support that growth. And I'm interested to know from your perspectives, what do you see as the biggest challenges within your own organizations in terms of scaling to meet that demand?
Want me to go?
Sure, go,
Okay.
Doug.
So Paragon is we do several different things, but one of our primary business lines is commercial grade dedication. So basically we're taking commercial product and we're performing testing and qualification to meet nuclear standards. So we have about 350 employees, about 250 of them are here in Texas, and that Texas facility supports most of those activities. Basically, you know, what we do is support the operating fleet in regards to maintaining their current assets or helping them perform upgrades of equipment. And we're seeing a very large influx of projects for that, for motor control centers, for chillers, for digital upgrades. So we've seen a lot of demand in that area. We've also seen a lot of demand from the Department of Energy, particularly for the Savannah River project. So, maintaining the current fleet in regards to the day-to-day parts, we also do a lot to solve obsolescence in that. So when we look at 24 to 25, our bookings have more than doubled, and that's really without a lot of contribution from the SMRs. So we've been anticipating a large growth area on the operating fleet, and now we're seeing that in the DOE, and now we're looking at that increase from the SMR community as well. We're working with over 20 of the current SMR providers right now, and some of them we've been working with for multiple years, like NewScale and X-Energy. So some are, relatively new entrants, and a lot of those are here. So what we need to do is really invest in scale to be able to support that demand. And when we look at the SMR market, we all want to build a lot of those. So we're looking at a company at Paragon where we were doing one, or many of one or two, and now we're going to be doing, on the SMR side, whereas our legacy has been more of doing, a few of many. So that creates a different investment. So we've been raising money, or went out on an effort for the last year to raise capital to support that, and that was one of the reasons that we made the decision to sell Paragon to Mirion, which is a publicly traded company that provides better support for that investment. So we've been funding a lot of our investment. We've been backed by private equity ourselves off our own balance sheet, and we know the demand is coming, and we need to be able to support that.
Great. Kreshka?
Yeah, sure. So, I started to talk about it a little bit before about replacement of assets at the end of life. So I think for Dow, we see advanced nuclear in particular as providing a huge opportunity for industrial consumers of electricity and steam, in that, with the smaller footprint, the modularity, the ability to effectively co-locate assets along with our petrochemical manufacturing. For us, nuclear really represents, an opportunity to replace an aging, typically gas-fired cogeneration asset with a nuclear asset that can provide us, with power and steam for 60, 70, 80, or even more years. But in order to get there and feel comfortable making those investments, there are a few challenges and opportunities that we see. I think they can primarily be bucketed into three categories, which are all sort of intertwined, and I don't think anyone will be surprised to hear what they are. But it's really fuel assurance, schedule, and cost, right? So if we're going to invest in an asset like this, we need to know that the fuel is going to be there for the long term. And so, there are concerns, of course, right now about just general availability as it relates to HALEU, but also geopolitical risks, timing. There's been discussion already today about some of the chicken and egg issues that are faced. So that's sort of what we're struggling with on fuel, and we need to figure out how to sort that out. I think the second one is schedule. So again, we look at this, and most industrial users, I think, would look at an investment in nuclear as something that replaces an existing end-of-life asset. And so we need to be able to deliver these projects on a fairly certain timeline that can eventually be comparable with the timelines to replace with other technologies such as natural gas-fired cogeneration. So again, we need those timelines to be fairly certain and consistent, and so that ties back to permitting concerns and all of that. And then finally, it's really about budgets, right? So capital costs must be clear, they must be consistent, and basically that's what will allow us to make those investments. And so all of those are sort of inextricably linked, and I think how we're really seeing it is that there's going to be a lot of collaboration, partnership between private industry, governments, at all levels, and other stakeholders in order to kind of put this picture together and really make it work.
That's great. Thank you. Rick?
Good, yeah. Holtec's in a little bit of a unique position because we're vertically integrated and we control a lot of our supply chain. Like I mentioned earlier, we have 3 U.S. manufacturing facilities. We have our own civil team. We have our own site services team, international site services teams that actually go out and work inside of the plants in and around spent fuel and other type of maintenance services. Just to give you a feel on our core business, which is really reactor components and heat exchangers that we provide to existing plants and to other reactor providers like Westinghouse and others, it's really for a while, 10, 15 years, it was kind of a slow market. People were just putting the bare minimum cost into keeping these plants operating under OpEx pressure, delaying capital investments. And so, maybe we had 5 or 10 like major heat exchanger equipment over like a 10 to 15 year period. It really wasn't a lot of activity. In the last year, we've received bids for about 33 feed water heaters in the U.S. Just to give you a feel for the amount of like planned investment now going into lifetime extensions, plant upgrades, power uprates. And so that does present, obviously, some growth challenges as we're looking to build the future for others as the nuclear industry goes as a supplier, but also our own SMR fleet that we're working to deliver. I think from a supply chain perspective, we buy raw materials, we buy components. I think we're also there in a little bit of a unique position because we've been around for 40 years. We have commercial grade dedication programs. We are an ASME certified material organization, so we can upgrade material. So even now, we buy about 80% of like materials either as dedicated or upgraded because the nuclear supply chain has largely disappeared, over the last 20 or 30 years. So I think that does open up supply chain opportunities for us when we're looking to qualify, non-certified supply chain. In our own factory, we still have challenges with workforce. The reality is that there's just not a lot of people who want to work in factory environments anymore. And we have a training program that we have laborers that can basically go, stay after school, they can get trained and qualified to become a welder. Obviously, they would get a pay bump. To me, it's like the great American dream. If you work hard and put in extra time, you can raise your standard of living for your family, but it's, I'd say it's underutilized. We were surprised how underutilized that facility is. And so what we've really done now, we continue to work on development partnerships with tech schools and programs in and around our area. We have good connections now into Virginia where we partnered with a tech school there to provide QA, QC people. But we've also invested heavily in robotics. And if you come to our factory now, a lot of people focus on the equipment. I always tell people, no, you have to look like around the equipment, and you'll see robots everywhere that are like, doing welding that basically makes up for the workforce. And it's been, I think, really a tremendous benefit to us. And we're looking to continue to do that. I think in the coming years, we're going to need a capacity expansion in our manufacturing facility to keep up with our order book, and that obviously will require additional capital investments. But I think there is a lot of excitement. I think there are, real challenges, and we'll talk more about these later with, also field work and unions, and we can talk more about what we're doing there.
Great. And we're going to dig into workforce a little more later as well. Ted, how about from your service business perspective?
Well, this is, as everyone in this room knows, a very complicated thing that we're trying to do. And there are more challenges and hurdles out there than we can count. From political to regulatory to financial, we can spend all day listing those. But the two that really come to the front for us, we spend some time thinking about. The first one is our professional workforce. Now, I know we've talked about all of the workforce that we need and the crafts and all of those things that we need. But for right now, when we're in the licensing and design phase, which is where most of us are, we need the engineers, we need the IT people, we need a lot of professional people that we need to train. And I was really, really, really encouraged by the Chancellor's discussion this morning. That was kind of exciting. We have a young man here that's a sophomore going into engineering school at A&M next year, And man, he's put me in, coach, I'm ready to play. He's all excited about this. So I think the chancellor's right. We need to get our young people exposed to this. We need to get them excited about what we're doing, holding up signs at the football game. And that's a big piece for us. The second big piece that I see is regulatory. Almost all of us are dealing with that. We need regulatory professionals, trained professionals. There are a lot of people that have been around a long time like me. There's not going to be around a whole lot longer. But one of the things that Certrec has worked on over the years is training. We have an extensive library of regulatory training, much of which contains knowledge migration. We've brought people in that develop programs and have long since retired, but they put together training programs for us to help us capture and train new people with those training videos. So that's the two big ones that we see. How can we, in the technology and the technical people, how can we use our technology better? How can we do AI? How can we do better research? We have every DCD, DCA, whatever they're all called, we have every one of those that's been written electronic. We have every question that's been asked. We have every answer that's been given. So how do we take all of that body of information that's already been processed and use it in our new license applications to let's take what's already been written and approved and accepted and put that in our application. So the extent to which we can do that, I think, is really important.
That's awesome. Kreshka, I'd like to ask you a question because I know everybody's curious about your project down on the Gulf Coast to build a X-energy reactor. And in the, I guess I'm wanting to know, like, even though we're still early days, what kind of lessons learned are you learning and thinking about preparing an industrial workforce to now introduce a nuclear plant into your environment?
Yeah, so, I mean, we work very closely with X-energy on the delivery of this project. We have an integrated team that sits with them. A number of people sit there full-time up at their offices in Maryland, and then another number of people that sort of rotate in and out. And I think, I mean, from a workforce perspective, one of the reasons, or one of the really big strengths that I think Dow brings to our partnership with X-energy is that we do have a long history of delivering these sort of large, integrated, kind of industrial mega projects. And we think of a mega project as any project over $1 billion. So, I mean, at any time within Dow, we may have 2 or maybe even 3 of these projects going on at some location around the globe. So we know how to execute these projects safely, on defined timelines and within budget. And so we think that sort of rigor in our processes that we're bringing to our partnership with X-energy is very helpful. I should comment on the operator side. I mean, we are looking at this as, Dow is not an experienced operator of nuclear assets. So we do intend to partner with an experienced nuclear operator to operate our facility. And so they will be bringing that skill set with them. And then I think but just on the sort of integration side, right, with a petrochemical project, we also have that experience of how do you integrate power and steam? How do you run an asset in order to supply that very high level, 99.995% reliability day in and day out? So I think there's a lot of experiences, and we're really looking at this as a partnership thing. But I think with that in mind as well, we are sort of looking at how we can help, develop our existing workforce to potentially support this project long term. And also, those exciting opportunities that come for others in the area, whether that's working with the universities, working with the local trade schools to develop that next generation workforce that can support our project. So I'll maybe leave it there, but I do think there are a lot of opportunities that we see in this workforce space in the coming years.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure you'll have lots of people interested in following your progress. It's going to be great. Doug, focusing on the supply chain a little bit, you're also equipment supplier to the industry, and building maybe a little bit on what Rick said. Obviously, everybody's talking about concerns of supply chain and do we have adequate supply chain to support the growth of the industry? Right now, the growth is just a lot of discussions, more so than a lot of execution in the field. But how are you managing that? I mean, how are you like preparing for growth in terms of investment in your business, yet the order book may not fully be there yet?
Yeah, it's a balance. So, you know, we're you know, I would say I get asked a lot of times, you know, what the future looks like in regards, particularly around timing. I think we all know that, you know, the opportunity right now in the SMR market is huge. That's why we have, you know, 700 plus people here for this event. Some of the challenges that we have found is, and what we've been able to do, fortunately, we have a very strong operating plant business that's been somewhat, you know, paying the bills as we developed some of the digital INC, neutron flux monitoring systems that were originally designed more for the SMRs, but are quickly becoming, you know, looked at by the upgrade market for the operating fleet as well. So our biggest investment has been in those two key areas. Those are cornerstone needs. What we see is a lot of the SMR developers are not, you know, they're thinking about fuel, they're thinking about the vessel, they're thinking about the reactor itself, and INC comes in a little later. Then they realize that the regulator requires you to have a, you know, at this point, a safety-related, particularly if you're going on the grid, you know, still 4-level reactor protection system and neutron flux monitoring system. You can't run a reactor without neutron flux. There's only a few suppliers of that in the world. So looking ahead at that demand and some of the lead time challenges for even mineral cabling and whatnot. So what we've seen here of late is with the July 4th initiative is we've been working along in early development with a lot of the different SMRs on first-of-a-kind, their first-of-a-kind technologies. Now we can throw another F into the FOAK. That's fast, first-of-a-kind. Mm-hmm. So fast isn't, you know, is very difficult right now. So we're really trying hard to work with a lot of you in this room to, you know, develop at least a prototype or a demonstration reactor with, you know, some licensing more around what would be in a university reactor. In parallel to that, we are having to, you know, look at how we're going to fund the investments needed. We've already taken about $70 million off our own balance sheet and put it back into our digital INC program. But now we've got an equal amount of investment, if not more, to get our facility ready for, you know, what we see as a bow wave. So access to capital, certainty, some level of certainty, you know, really allows a lot of the suppliers in this room to be able to go to their boards or go to their investors or go raise money to be able to support the growth. But it's a difficult dance right now.
Well, I guess after this conference, you're going to have to add an S, super fast.
What's that?
Add an S, super fast.
Super fast.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rick, I'd like to dive a little bit deeper with you on, I mean, you guys obviously have a big project going on at Palisades that everybody knows about and is thankful for, and it's exciting to see the progress that you're making. So recovering a large reactor, you also have a bunch of initiatives going on with small modular reactors in different geographies. And I'm wondering what, you know, so far in terms of your lessons learned, you guys are obviously been in the business for a long time, and now you're seeing the new growth with nuclear recovery of the old plants and new plants in flight. Kind of what are some of the top construction, supply chain, project management lessons that maybe you're seeing in the field that you think are transferable to the rest of the industry as we scale up?
Yeah, it's a good question, and there's a long list built on past mistakes.
Yeah.
But overall, I think we have a pretty good record of delivering projects. You know, it's been talked about earlier, but I think the thing that comes to mind that I do think was overlooked, and when we've had issues on projects, it's not like, it doesn't start in the field. There's things you can make in the field that are mistakes and planning projects, blah, blah. Like, a lot of the big challenges are in the design, right? I mean, and I know there's a lot of folks out, there's a lot of new companies coming into the field and developing technologies, and I just can't emphasize enough how important, getting the design done in a way that it's manufacturable and constructible. And it's not, your design is not like your concept drawing, it's not your licensing drawing. It's like, for a single component, the 30-page drawing with weld prep, overlay details, specifications, coatings, like all of the detail that goes into the product. And if you don't find that out until you're on site, that you can't put it together the way that you thought you would, it's going to kill your project. And being an integrated company, we're fortunate because we have the factory. And so what we've done, after we made issues in the 2000s timeframe, we have a mandatory fabrication sign-off before a drawing can be issued. So the guy in the factory who's got to build it, he has a sign-off in our QA system before it's released. And that's, you never get it right on a first of kind. Like I said, we do a lot of first of kind. But you can eliminate a lot of mistakes just by, and I could give you details, but we won't go into them here, of things that have come back out of the factory. Like, what are you guys thinking? It's like, you can't build it that way, or you have to move the joint. And if you don't have an integrated, factory, that's fine. But I think a process to engage with the fabricators and builders during the design process is absolutely essential. And I think that, the other thing I think that's been a key to our success is teams. Even though Holtec's vertically integrated, there's a lot of things we don't do on a project. And it's really trying to understand the scope, know what you're good at and your limitations, and then find the right partners to bring into the project. I think that's what's so interesting about the Dow partnership, because you guys have a lot of experience to deliver projects. And that's what we've tried to do. So if you look at our partner for our SMR program, we're going to be the manufacturer of most of the nuclear island equipment. A lot of that we'll do ourselves at our factory, and so we're going to be building the pieces that we're designing into the overall plant. We brought on Hyundai Engineering and Construction about 5 years ago. I brought them into the project. We have a strategic partnership. They have 50 years of continuous nuclear plant construction experience. They're doing the balance of plant design, and they're responsible for overall construction, and a part of that is constructability reviews. So they rotate people from their global offices into our office. They sit with our engineers, they review the specifications, they give us input, make us change the design, even sometimes we don't want to make it constructible. On Framatome, we selected them because they're a fuel producer, they also do control rod drives, and they make all the stuff themselves. So they're actually designing the systems and they're going to build them, so they have the integration. And then Mitsubishi Electric on the INC out of Japan, but we work with their US office. They make all of the subcomponents in their electrical systems, integrate them, factory test them, and then deliver them to site. So what we tried to do to minimize the number of first-of-kind issues in the field is to have a team of constructors that are uniquely capable within their own areas to make sure that the design that we finalize will be constructible. So that's number one. I think the other thing that's kind of related is, even though you have key partners, like you can't subcontract complete responsibility. If you're responsible for delivering the project, you can't just cut a purchase order and call once a month. You have to be actively involved. I think the other area that I've seen key needs is it's difficult to oversee someone's work if you don't have technical expertise in that area. And so subject matter experts that are involved in the subcontractor process, who understands the technology space. It doesn't have to be the corporate core business, but you have to have at least one subject matter expert overseeing that work. And I'd say the final one is, particularly on first-of-kind projects, overstaff your site engineering workforce, because that's where delays happen. There are going to be changes no matter how well you get it. And if you have folks that are away from the site, back in an office, maybe in different time zones, you're not going to be able to respond in real time, and you're going to have people standing around waiting for an engineering change order to be signed off. And so, and I've talked to other, companies around the world that are building plants. Like, you need to oversize your site engineering management team. They have the responsibility to review, approve, and sign off in real time engineering changes to keep the factory and the people working.
Yeah, those are all really good, especially that last one. I have seen that myself, and I think that's really, really applicable. Ted, let me ask you a little bit more about the licensing part, since that's obviously your area of expertise for a long time. And from your perspective, you mentioned the AI opportunities, and we need some smart AI folks to dig into all of that for sure. But what do you think about a different way to engage with regulators in order to make that process not just more efficient, but also provide more certainty for adhering to the schedule without licensing issues as we progress? Any insights there?
Sure. I was talking this morning with one of my colleagues, and he and I were laughing that we each have over 50 years in the nuclear industry, and we think that this is probably the fourth nuclear renaissance that we've been involved in. This one, of course, we're excited about because we think it has legs, and this really looks like this thing is going to go. I have a goal in my life of going to a ribbon cutting ceremony, so I would like someone out there to really hurry up, okay? I know we're all very excited, and I'm going somewhere here. I know we're all very excited about digging a hole and building a plant and that first criticality and closing that breaker. But in reality, most of us are not in construction and operation phase. We're in design and licensing regulatory phase. So that means that the regulator, of course, for the design phase, we've already talked about the importance of the workforce, but the other part of it is that puts the regulator in a very important position in our near-term life. And so how can we do a better job of interfacing and working with the regulator? Well, that comes down to communication, and there's two parts to communication. There's how we communicate, and we've done a pretty good job there. We've picked up email, and we've got Teams meetings, and we've got electronic reading rooms, and the speed of light sort of dictates how fast we can actually move material between one another now. What's more important to me is what we communicate. Now, we have to understand, in this communication process, our mindset of how we look at the regulator is very important. First off, we need to recognize and understand that our industry cannot exist without the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. If we do not have a strong, independent, credible regulator that gives the public and Congress and the investors confidence that we're safely managing our technology, our industry can't exist. So for us to be successful, the NRC must be successful. So as we're communicating with them and working with them to get our construction permit and or operating license or COLA, we need to look at things from their point of view and understand the decisions that they need to make, the conclusions that they have to come to. What is the definition of success for the regulator? Then we have to engage with them in such a way that we help them be successful. We don't just throw material at them and say, read it and figure it out. We write it in such a way that they can clearly understand what we're trying to do. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but we go hold their hand and help them understand how they take our information and get to the conclusion that we need them to get to. So that is part of our communicating process with the regulator, that we really need to think about it from their point of view, and we're running a little short of time, so I'll stop my answer at that point.
Okay. Yeah, we have a lot more questions than we have time available, that's for sure. Actually, let me ask a question, and I want to use it as kind of our last question so we can take enough time for each of the participants. We want to get more projects going. We're doing a lot of talking about new build. There's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of designs, but we don't actually have that many projects in execution. if you were able to, swing your magic wand and change one thing or make one thing more effective right now, what would that be to actually get projects started, to get licenses, applications in the hands of the regulator, to get shovels in the ground? Why don't you start, Doug, and then we'll come back around to Ted.
Yeah, sure. Again, I think we've been able to put ourselves in, particularly in some of the startup or some of the newer SMR customer shoes, because we have people on our team that have, had experience at Accenture and some other nuclear startups. So what we're trying to do is help the industry understand the journey that they're on, regardless of where they are in their path. The magic wand is, I think, somewhat something that you said too, is now we want to go really fast, super fast, as you said. And, you can't get ahead of your design curve, because if you start building while you're designing, it's the instant recipe for total disaster. So even though we want to go fast, we've got to make sure we take the time and understand how does that design inform manufacturing and all the way through commissioning.
So you said me next?
Sure.
The first 5 things that come to my mind are regulatory certainty. I mean, we have to go spend an awful lot of money with no guarantee that we're actually going to ever be able to build this thing. South Texas project we worked on back when, 8 years to get an operating license for that plant. That just can't be. It can't be acceptable. A lot of things are going on in Washington. We know that. We see that. The administration is working on things. So we have to put a lot of effort right now into the regulatory process, both from our standpoint and from the government standpoint, to get this time frame shortened, get our communications better, and get more assurance that we're going to be able to get the license and then the second, third, fourth, fifth that we need super fast.
All right. Kreshka?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe tagging on to a little bit of what's been said already, I do think it is a lot about this go slow so we can go fast, right? And this is, I mean, again, this is, I think, what Dow is bringing to our project. I mean, that project discipline, that experience over decades of doing mega projects. But by going slow up front, getting the design right, taking the time to make sure that your permitting and your applications and all of these things are done properly, so it eliminates rework, it helps you keep, on schedule, it helps you keep on budget, and get it just overall, this is what's going to lower the risk of these projects, and that's going to incentivize investment and all of that. So I would say it's go slow to go fast.
Okay. Rick?
Yeah, I think the thing that I spend a lot of my time on now, and the thing that worries me in Texas, is how do you make a viable business case to build a plant in Texas? And the challenge there, I think, is there's readily available, low-cost, clean electricity, and a nuclear plant is a high capex asset. We all know the benefits. I don't have to repeat them, but the fact is, the market won't pay for those assets the way the current markets are set up. So potentially there needs to be a look at market reform, or there's a very few credit-worthy off-takers that are willing to do projects. And I think then the math they're doing is, okay, I can get cheap energy from the grid, or I can put into nuclear. And the cheaper the clean energy prices are around that asset, the more difficult it is to bridge the gap between what you need to move new projects. So I think that's, if the state can figure out how to make a viable business case to get real projects going, supply chain, everything else will follow.
Yeah, we need that commitment. Yep. Well, we're out of time. I'd like everybody to thank our panelists. Thanks for all your insights and your experience. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Those are bright lights.